If you're a parent or share a fridge with someone, Instacart is about to make grocery shopping so much easier. Because with family carts, you can share a cart with your partner and each add the items you want. Since between the two of you, odds are you'll both remember everything you need. And this way, you'll never have to eat milkless cereal again. So minimize the stress of the weekly shop with family carts. Download the Instacart app and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply. For 3 orders in 14 days, excludes restaurants.
Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. Fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Lowe's, Levi's, and Nike pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cash back. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It's a no-brainer. Membership is free and easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cash back really adds up.
Hey, TCAT Unsolved listeners, in order to support our show, we'll need the help of some great advertisers. And in order to find those great advertisers, we need to learn a little bit more about you. So please go to podsurvey.com/TCAT. Take a quick anonymous survey. It helps us to get to know you a little bit better. That way we can show advertisers just how great our listeners are. And once you've completed the survey, you can choose to enter for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Terms and conditions apply. Again, that's podsurvey.com/TCAT, TCATT. Thanks for your help. Anyone can own iconic luxury items at unreal values with The RealReal. They are the leading reseller of authenticated luxury from top designers at up to 90% off retail. Every item is authenticated by their team of experts. New customers receive an automatic $25 off at checkout. You can shop in store, online, or download the app. Get 20% off select items with the promo code REAL. So that's therealreal.com, promo code REAL. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 102 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, what is going on, my brother?
102, man.
102.
102. That's what I'm saying. I can't believe we're that far into it.
Well, what'd we just do?
101?
No. I meant on true crime all the time. I know what comes before 102.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder.
119?
119, I think.
Yeah. It seems like yesterday we were doing 100 on Ed Kemper.
Seemed like yesterday we just decided to do this.
I know. It goes very, very fast.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm glad to hear it.
Absolutely.
I think you're back in fighting shape and ready to go.
I am. I'm up. Can't knock me down too long.
Can't keep a good man down?
Can't keep a good man down. I just play that Rocky motivational speech that's online every morning. Makes me get out of bed.
That's the only thing that helps you get out of bed. You need a Rocky motivational speech.
That and my bladder. My bladder's like, you better get up now, man.
It's time to get up.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's do our Patreon shout outs. We had Jordan Fegley.
Hey, Jordan.
Linda Marie Reynolds.
Ooh, hey.
Tracy.
Just Tracy?
Just Tracy.
Okay.
Kaylee Mustakas.
Ooh, Mustakas.
I love that name. I like to say it.
And we like her.
Ashley Hyde.
Hey, Ashley.
Marissa Allen.
Hey, Marissa.
Sue Snell.
Sue.
Kimberly Tornatola.
Ooh, Tornatola.
I Am Silver Girl.
Well, one more step and you'll be gold.
I thought you were going to give me a hard time for saying I am Silver Girl.
You knew that already.
Mark Fontaine.
Hey, Mark.
Adam Kaiser jumped out at our highest level.
Adam Kaiser.
Jillian Shields.
Ooh, hey, Jillian.
Alexandra Eklund.
Ooh, the Eklunds in the house.
Yep. Sheila Perot.
Hey, like, do you know Ross?
It's not spelled the same.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it could be Perrault, but
Perrault?
I'm going with Perot.
I'm going with Perrault.
Leslie Malore.
Hey, Malore.
Kirsten.
Just Kirsten?
Yep. Helen Olivier.
Ooh, Olivier.
Melody Crenshaw.
Hey, Melanie.
Marcy Wiggins.
Hey, Marcy.
Monica Bingham.
Monica.
Lee Lewis.
Thank you, Lee.
And then Kim upped her pledge to the highest level.
Really?
And
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. If we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Nancy Brooks. We love Nancy.
We do love Nancy.
She's been with us for a long time.
She's
Great supporter.
One tough woman.
We had some amazing PayPal support as well. We had Melissa Buell.
Thank you.
Jillian Pakran.
Oh, Pakran. That's a fun name.
Our friend Allison Thompson.
Allison, always impressing
Yep.
us.
Marilyn Verscharen.
Ooh, Vesharon.
Jennifer Murray.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And Patrick Neal.
Wow, thank you, Patrick.
So appreciate the support all the way around. Gibbs, we just put out a Patreon-only episode. So speaking of Patreon, now's a great time to sign up. We had an episode on Lucius Boyd.
Yeah.
Kind of a monstrous guy. One of those strange cases where convicted of only one murder. I say only. Shouldn't say it that way. But suspected of probably 10, 12 more.
Yeah. It was pretty brutal.
And then we have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time.
Oh, man, that was good.
On Reginald Brooks. And this is a man that, was battling some mental illness. He had some things going on, but chose to kill his 3 sons. It was brutal.
Sickening.
And, this is one of those cases where not a question of whether he did it or not. It's really a question of why. And getting to the why. How could you do it? What were the reasons? What was going on through your head type of deal?
What the F was wrong with you?
Exactly. Right. We're getting excited about CrimeCon.
Yeah, we are.
Can't wait to meet folks. If you're going to buy your badge on the CrimeCon website, make sure you use our code CrimeAllTheTime19.
I'm just excited about eating those fancy biscuit donut things.
Biscuit donut things, sometimes known as beignets.
Beignets.
Yeah, they're good, man.
I just want to eat me a beignet.
I am going to take you there.
Okay.
I will buy your beignets.
Oh, then I'm definitely going.
I will buy your coffee just so I can sit and watch you enjoy.
You say you're going to buy my coffee knowing I don't drink coffee. I see how you are.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot you don't drink coffee.
You're like, I'll buy you coffee.
I'll buy you something else. What do you drink?
Yeah.
Milk? I'll buy you a milk if you want a milk.
Buy me a Jack and Coke. No. Give me a big old orange juice, man.
I don't know if they have orange juice there, but we'll see. And I don't know how that would go with the beignets.
I guess I don't know what a beignet.
Benny and the Jets.
Yeah. I'll have one of those things that starts with a B.
Just say, when you go in and the guy asks you what you want, just say, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody's having the same thing.
Exactly. Give me what Meg's having.
All right. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're on part 3 of the West Memphis 3 case, the murders of Chris Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch. Now, originally, Gibbs, I thought this would be 3 episodes. But as I got into it, I realized there's just no way. There is no way to contain it to 3. It's got to be 4.
It's going to have to be.
No way around it.
Well, it's going to be.
It's going to be because this is 3. And we're not going to get through the entire story.
We can tell you that right now.
So where we left off, there are 3 8-year-old boys dead. There are 3 teenagers in prison for their murders. We had Damian Eccles was sentenced to death. Jesse Miskelly Jr. got life, plus I think 40. And Jason Baldwin got life with no parole. That's where we left off. But in researching this case, I think the one thing that you learn pretty quickly, Gibbs, is no one came out of this thing unscathed, right? Everybody involved in some way in this case.
Regardless of what side you're on.
Right. Regardless of what side, you were affected. But some of the family members on both sides had legal troubles after this case. So I wanted to talk about some of those. Some had legal troubles before, and we'll talk about that as well.
Legal and financial.
And financial. So Mark and Melissa Byers, They were charged with burglary in 1994 for allegedly stealing $20,000 worth of antiques from their neighbors.
Yeah. That's why we don't allow our neighbors anywhere near our house. They don't know what we have. Your neighbors don't know what you have.
They don't even know my name.
You don't even let me walk through your house unattended.
There are designated zones with flags.
You make me wear a shock collar
that say Gibby on them, and it guides you to the parts of my house that you're allowed to go.
And trust me, if I go outside of that area, I feel it.
So the two of them, they moved shortly after the trials, right, to try to escape the publicity. But that didn't work. They were in the news all the time. They kept getting arrested.
Well, I mean, and he played to the cameras a lot.
Oh, he
too.
did.
I mean,
no doubt. We're going to talk extensively about Mark a little later. So they stole from their neighbors. They had some neighbors that took out a restraining order against them.
How bad is it when a neighbor takes a restraining order against you?
Well, apparently Mark whipped their 5-year-old son.
Well, don't touch my kids, man.
Without their permission. Just decided on his own that this kid needed a whipping. Given what was out there in the media about you, that seems very strange to me.
Yeah, you know.
To whip somebody else's kid.
You don't touch other people's kids, man.
These neighbors have said they heard gunshots. They've said there were bullet holes in the side of their house. They also said that Melissa Byers threatened them. And specifically, they said that she told them, quote, "We'll put you in a hole you can't get out of. I lost my Christopher. Maybe you need to see what it's like to lose a child."
Well, that's threatening.
That's very threatening. In 1995, she was charged, Melissa was, with aggravated assault. Apparently, Gibbs, she pulled a gun on some carpet installers who were going to do some work at her place because she hadn't moved any of the furniture, or she and Mark or whatever, they hadn't moved any of the furniture. And the guy said, "Hey, we can't install the carpet until you move the furniture." Well, she didn't take kindly to that and pulled a gun on him.
Ooh.
But Melissa died in early 1996, died on her couch. And we might get into it a little bit later. There are people that think that it was a very strange situation. Let's put it that way. Mark Byers was convicted in 95 of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And this was over an incident where he allowed 2 kids to fight each other. So these 2 kids had an argument. One of the kids was with Mark. An argument breaks out over a girl, as it often does, or, when you're young. But not only did Mark Byers allow it, he stopped other kids from breaking up the fight by telling them that, hey, it's between these 2 boys, let them settle it. That's not great as an adult. The problem is he's doing this whole thing while holding a gun.
Not good.
Not good. Not good. Got charged with that and convicted. Then you talk about Terry Hobbs. And there's going to be a lot of Terry Hobbs talk in this episode. But Terry Hobbs pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault for shooting his wife's brother in the stomach in late 1994. Remember, this is when the trial took place, right? 94. So a lot of this stuff is happening not that long after the trials. It was reported in the papers that the 2 men got into an argument when his brother-in-law confronted him about beating Pam Hobbs. So Terry's wife, this man's sister, and he shot the guy. Now, he claimed it was self-defense. And to an extent, I think it was. This guy had him on the ground, but it was also said that, he jumped up and waved the gun at everybody else that was there and said, "I'll shoot you too." And Pam and Terry later divorced, but it doesn't stop there. In June of 95, Michael Moore's mother, Diane, was involved in a drunk driving accident in which she killed a pedestrian. She received a sentence of 5 years probation for negligent homicide. Does that seem right?
Why doesn't it seem right?
I guess because you killed someone through your action of driving while intoxicated, but got just 5 years probation. That don't seem right to me.
It doesn't seem right. You made a decision to get behind that wheel.
And you ended somebody's life.
Yeah.
But that's the sentence. That's the sentence that was handed down. Damien's mother, Pam, and Jack, the father that adopted him, they separated. So I think you always have a lot of that, right? In this very tumultuous situation, whether you lost a child or in one way or another, right? Your child died. These other families, they lost their children to the penal system. You have a lot of divorce. I think that happens a lot. But in late 94, Damien's mother was at a party with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend shot and killed her previous boyfriend.
Oh, man. Okay.
This is like a reality TV show.
You can't make this stuff up.
This guy was convicted of manslaughter, and he got sentenced to 10 years in prison. So she didn't do anything wrong. It just kind of happened while she was there. But it's all happening around them. Jesse Miskelly Sr. was arrested in 96 for illegally possessing a firearm while being a felon. And I guess the felony stemmed from some drug convictions years earlier. So I just wanted to point some of these things out. There was a lot going on in these people's lives. And then you have the documentary, Paradise Lost. We've talked about it. It comes out in 1996. There's some sequels to follow. But the big thing is, I think it caused a lot of people to question the convictions. A lot of celebrity firepower, right? Got behind the three teenagers and their innocence, but a lot of money poured in for the defense of Damien, Jesse, and Jason. There was a Los Angeles-based group called the Free the West Memphis 3 Support Fund. So it formed, it started raising funds. With all this money pouring in, what you get is high-powered legal help, and you get some big-time experts with that type of money. And the goal for all these people was to get the teenagers new trials. But neither the Arkansas Supreme Court nor the United States Supreme Court was going to overturn the convictions of the three. It's not going to happen. In 1998, this is 4 years after they were convicted, Damien's defense team retained the services of a criminalist named Brent Turvey. And they wanted this guy to examine all the evidence and give them his conclusions. And I think there were some fascinating things that came out of this examination. One of the big ones was that Turvey saw what he thought were human bite marks, or at least 8-1 human bite mark on the forehead of Stevie Branch. And I think this would be huge, right? If they were indeed bite marks, because you can use bite marks to identify someone.
So basically it's kind of like a fingerprint.
I think it's very similar.
Yeah.
You know, if you have an expert that can match it up, I think it can be viewed in a similar fashion to a fingerprint. I don't know if it's as exact as that, but
that's why when I bite people, I always put in those fake vampire teeth, and then I bite.
For the people at home, you just giving advice, or you just like to say what you do?
I'm just saying what I do.
Okay.
So I always carry those fake Halloween vampire.
So kind of like a Red Dragon. You remember the movie Red Dragon?
Yeah.
I watched that with my girls. They love those movies.
Did they? Yeah.
Well, they love Silence of the Lambs. They didn't know there were other movies.
How many is there altogether?
There are... Technically, there's 4 or 5. There's an old one that has the guy that was in CSI. Can't think of his name, but
the redheaded guy?
No.
Oh,
the redheaded guy.
You know that guy.
No, but yeah, there's 4 or 5 of them. I think 4 maybe. Hell, I don't know.
I don't know. It's good stuff though.
No, but in that movie Red Dragon, he used like some dentures, right? And he would put them in his mouth, bite. And that's why they thought he had all these jacked up teeth. Well, really, he didn't in real life.
See, things people think about.
So what came out of this was the defense filed a Rule 37 petition asking for a new trial based on a number of things. One of those being ineffective counsel, right? You almost always have to use that. So because of this petition, there was a hearing, and the defense had a forensic odontologist testify that, yeah, he agreed that these were indeed human bite marks. Now, they already had dental impressions of the 3 teenagers, so they were pretty quickly able to rule them out. They didn't match, but the prosecution had their own expert who said, not surprisingly, it was not a human bite mark. And this was the same judge that presided over Jesse's trial and the trial of Jason and Damien. And when he weighed all the evidence, he sided with the prosecution and he denied them a new trial. He just wasn't convinced by the evidence. So then in 1999, Damien Echols, sitting on death row, he got married a woman named Lori Davis. And this is a woman that had watched the documentary, had written to him. They wrote back and forth for a while. They talked on the phone. In 97, she quit her job in New York. She was a landscape architect.
Pretty decent job, I would think, for New York.
Yeah, lived in New York, moved to Arkansas to be close to the prison, close to Damien, and she became Damien's lead advocate for his innocence and worked pretty much nonstop, raising money to fund his defense. You know, again, the whole goal was to try to get him a new trial. But the years go on. There's really not a lot happening. In 2002, Mara Leverett, who was an Arkansas newspaper columnist, she had covered the case extensively. She released her book called Devil's Knot. And later on in 2013, it was turned into a movie with Reese Witherspoon. She played Pam Hobbs. Colin Firth played this investigator named Ron Lax. But the book and really the film as well, they leaned heavily towards the innocence of the 3 teenagers, as do the documentaries, right? There's no doubt about it. Pretty much most of the books, all the Paradise Lost documentaries, the West of Memphis documentary that we'll probably talk about, they all side with the fact that, or lean towards the fact that these 3 teenagers are innocent. But this book, Devil's Knot, it puts forth theories, it puts forth some information implicating Terry Hobbs. This is a big deal.
A huge deal.
And then I mentioned it, the West of Memphis documentary. This was later on in 2013. It's going to throw even more suspicion onto Terry Hobbs. In 2003, Vicky Hutchison, the woman that tried to get Damien to implicate himself on tape, the woman that told police the story about her going with Damien and Jesse to a witch's coven or some type of an occult happening, she recanted her statement, recanted the testimony that she gave on the stand. She just came out and said, Gibbs, she made it all up.
Just made it up.
Made it up. And I think it's significant for a number of reasons. First off, her statements kind of helped fan the fire.
Oh, of course they did, especially in that environment.
Very early on, right around Damien, Jesse, and then by proxy, Jason being suspects.
And you're right, because everybody was hearing how he was this devil worshiper, this Satanist. And she comes out and says, oh, yeah, we used to do this. We did that. Confirming everything they wanted to hear.
Well, and she testified at Jesse's trial of that she had gone with them, had seen them participate in this, I don't know what she called it. I can't remember, witch's coven or Satanism or whatever it was.
Some ritual.
For some ritual. That was a big deal. I mean, she, just like you said, she was corroborating what the state was putting forward, and she's giving an account of firsthand knowledge. In a case with very little physical evidence, I think this was probably pretty crucial. Now, she didn't testify in the trial of Damien and Jason, but it was pretty well known by that point what had happened in Jesse's trial, what she had said in Jesse's trial. It had been reported.
Right.
So it was out there. I can't say yay or nay whether the jurors knew about it, took it into account. Probably pretty safe to say that they did know something about it.
I would think.
Then we get to 2007. 2007 was a pretty big year in this case. Some interesting information came to light. new DNA tests indicated that some DNA found at the crime scene didn't match either Damien, Jason, or Jesse.
That's pretty big.
It was big. A hair that was found in a knot used to tie up Michael Moore was analyzed, and the test came back that it was not inconsistent with hair from Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch. Now, a lot was made about this, and there's a lot online, a lot of people saying, that was Terry's hair. But we have to break it down. What it really said is it was not inconsistent, meaning it could have come from Terry Hobbs, but they couldn't conclusively prove that it did. I've seen some figures, I don't know how accurate they are, Gibbs, that say it was consistent with about 1.5% of the population. So that's a fairly big number. But obviously that number becomes much smaller when you factor in how many people it could have come from in West Memphis or the surrounding area, assuming the killer was from that part, which I think most people do, or many people do.
Many.
But I definitely wanted to make that point because there is a lot of heat thrown on Terry Hobbs, and we're going to talk about everything. And I think there's good reason for some of it. But a lot of people point to the hair and say, how could it not be Terry Hobbs when his hair was found inside the knot of the shoelace? Right? How could it be inside the knot? We know how it could be transferred onto somebody's shirt,
right,
and end up, on their shirt. But they say, how could it be in the knot? I just want to make sure that we're saying they can't conclusively prove 100% that it's his hair. So I mentioned there was a lot of firepower on the defense team at this point, and it included some big time experts in various fields. I mean, we're talking about, Gibbs, famed forensic pathologists like Werner Spitz, Michael Bodden. I mean, these are like the top guys in their field.
Yeah.
Now they're aged. Werner Spitz had to have been probably in his 80s by this point, but he was regarded as one of the
healthy resume.
Oh yeah. Had been in a lot of trials. These experts as a group concluded from the evidence that the injuries to the boys that had often been attributed to a knife or some other object were not made by anything like that at all. They said most of the injuries to the skin and the injury to the penis of Chris Byers occurred after death, and it resulted from animals. So this was a big deal, a big thing that came out in 2007. Some, they said, may have been inflicted by snapping turtles, but they didn't know. They said it could have been dogs. It could have been all different types of animals. Werner Spitz was quoted as saying, none of the injuries were caused during life, and none were caused by a serrated knife or any knife for that matter. So why is this big? When you have these well-respected experts say this, to me, it's because the prosecution put forth the fact that there was a knife. The penis was partially cut off. There were knife wounds. To me, that's why it's such a big deal.
Right.
Now, I do want to point out that although these guys are experts, there's no doubt about their credentials, right? Just like you said, Gibbs, they were not looking at the bodies, right? This is years later. They were looking at pictures. They were looking at things like that. So they were making all their determinations based off of that. I do want to make that point because that's something that's highly debated online. And I know I keep saying that, but I think it's part of what makes this case so frustrating. You know, if you watch one of the documentaries, you're convinced about certain things.
Oh, absolutely you are.
You find another piece of evidence, you're like, oh my gosh, that's not what I thought it was.
Right.
So there are some things like that for sure. All right, Gibbs, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsors. And the first one is a new drama from WGN America. It's called Gone. Listen, every hour in the United States, 75 people are reported missing. And at any given moment, more than 84,000 people are nowhere to be found. What if there was a special task force dedicated to bringing the missing home? Well, that's the story behind the powerful new original drama, Gone, premiering Wednesday, February 27th at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on WGN America. Stars Chris Noth from Law & Order and Sex and the City, Danny Pino from Mayans and Law & Order SVU, and newcomer Levlin Raman, who portrays the newest member of this elite team that just happens to be a survivor of a childhood abduction herself. Don't miss the series premiere of Gone, Wednesday, February 27th at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. It's only on WGN America. You can find it anywhere on your cable, DirecTV, Dish, or find it by going to WGNAmerica.com. BetterHelp Online Counseling is there for you if you have anything that's interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals. They offer licensed professional counselors specialized in a wide array of issues. You can connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment, and you can do all of this at your own time, schedule, and pace. Anything you share is confidential. They have secure video, phone sessions, as well as chat and text options. And if for some reason you're not happy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time for no additional charge. This is a truly affordable option. True Crime All the Time Unsolved listeners get 10% off their first month with the discount code TCAT. So why not get started today? Go to betterhelp.com/TCAT. Fill out a simple questionnaire that allows them to assess your needs, but also to match you up with a counselor you'll love. That's betterhelp.com/TCAT. Now, I said we were going to talk about Terry Hobbs, and I do want to talk about some people that have been voiced as suspects, whether it was online, whether it was in a documentary. But I think the first one to talk about for sure is Terry Hobbs.
Well, I think you have to.
I think Terry Hobbs, by a majority, probably, of the people that do not believe the West Memphis Three are guilty, they think Terry Hobbs is the murderer.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's pretty safe to say.
Oh, I think you're very safe to say that.
Even his ex-wife, Pam, who some years after the murders began to believe that the three teenagers were innocent, she started questioning her ex-husband. Pam and Terry split up in 2002. Now, she has admitted that she harbors a lot of anger towards Terry. And number one, she's angry about the fact that he shot her brother in 94. He ultimately passed away in 2006. Some reports that I read said it was from complications of that gunshot wound. She's also angry over Terry's actions on the night Stevie went missing. So Pam has said that Terry was usually home by 4 p.m. He watched the kids while she went off to her job at a restaurant. But Terry wasn't home that day. And he wasn't home by 4:45, according to Pam, when she had to leave to go to her job. Now, Stevie had already gone out riding his bike, and he was supposed to be back by 4:30, but he wasn't back. Terry wasn't home, but Pam had to get to work, so she left. She did not find out about Stevie not coming home until 9 p.m. that night, when Terry picked her up at the restaurant. Now, what Pam says is that Terry told her he didn't want to unnecessarily worry her at work, which I guess I get that a little bit in the first half hour, couple hours.
Yeah.
I think at some point when you're talking with the other parents or you find out that it's not just Stevie, I think it's not unnecessarily worrying somebody at that point.
No, I mean, I would think that you would have called pretty early just to say, "Hey, I can't find him. Is he with you by chance?"
That's actually a really good thought.
I mean, that's what I would have done. I would have just said,
I know in today's world with cell phones, that would be my first thought, because I just naturally pick up the phone, call my wife and say,
yeah.
A lot of times I'll say, "Hey, My daughter didn't come home, and she'll say, that's because she has practice till whatever. I told you that, dumbass.
Yeah. Or I took her, I'm with her, we're at the dentist.
Yeah,
remember?
right.
I told you we had a dentist
It
appointment
usually is followed by my wife saying, I told you this yesterday. You don't listen to me. You're a dumbass.
That's every day. When she said it to both of us before we started recording.
She did. She called us both dumbasses.
Yeah.
I love my wife.
I think we both said, thank you.
Thank you. May I please have another?
Yeah.
So she's angry with Terry, and she's honest about that. In 2002, Pam gave 15 knives that she found in a drawer to the defense team. Because as she put it, she didn't trust the prosecution anymore by that point. So she found all these knives that she believed belonged to Terry, and she gave them to the defense. The main reason she did this, according to Pam, was that in with all these knives was one that was very specific. It was a little pocket knife that her father had given to Stevie. And Pam has said Stevie would have been carrying that pocket knife on May 5th. He never went anywhere without it because his grandfather had given it to him. He cherished it. He took it everywhere.
Basically saying, because he has it, that means he must have been with Stevie the day he died.
Saying something's not right. Now, there is no guarantee that Stevie had that knife that day. I think Pam is saying he usually carried it everywhere. I don't understand why he wouldn't have had it. But I think you're right. I think she's throwing some shade on Terry. I think she's beginning to think that just maybe he could have had something to do with this. Now, Terry has dismissed all of this, right? Obviously. He said that, you know what? I had a lot of knives, many of which I would throw in a drawer. One of them could have been Stevie's pocket knife. I'm not sure. Now, to be fair, this is like 9 years later.
Yeah. I mean, got to put it in perspective as well.
I think you do. But the big thing for me, Gibbs, is in 2004, Pam stated that she found Terry's partial denture locked up in a lockbox that he kept in the closet. So inside this lockbox, you have the denture. There was a necklace with a 1984 penny on it and a marble. Seems like a strange combination of things.
Yeah.
But to me, it's also strange to put your dentures in a lockbox.
Especially if you thought they could ever be tied back to something. Why wouldn't you just destroy them?
Well, so I get that. I guess where I was going was that why lock them up in the first place if you don't have anything to hide? You're saying, okay, if you got something to hide, why put them in the lockbox, throw them in the lake, burn them, whatever?
Yeah, why risk it? But you'd have to be smart enough to know that too.
Well, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to start off this episode the way we did, talking about things that happened, you know, with these families kind of right after the trial. And I think you get that from the documentaries, right? The inside access. I don't think Terry was a rocket scientist. I don't think he was going to be working at NASA trying to help us on our next mission to Mars or anything like that.
No, I don't see Terry doing that at all.
So maybe what you and I think we would do or wouldn't do, maybe that doesn't apply to someone like Terry. I don't know. And maybe the dentures don't have anything to do with anything, but maybe they do.
I mean, I know dentures can be expensive, I hear.
So you got to lock them up in your lockbox?
Lock them up. Maybe people are stealing them there and taking them to the little pawn shops. Got some dentures here. How much can you give me? Because people might buy you
This was
dentures.
a partial denture. Who the hell is going to buy it? What are the chances that somebody else's partial denture, number one, are going to be the exact same teeth that you're missing?
What if you have no teeth on the bottom? You're like, hey, a partial's better than nothing.
I'm pretty sure that, aren't they kind of form-fitted?
I think they are. I think you'd have to take a pair of pliers and pull some teeth out to make it fit then.
I mean, if I walk into a pawn shop and I see somebody's partial denture, and I know they have some weird stuff in the pawn shop.
You're going to buy them. You're like, I think there's something here.
At this point, I'm buying them just for,
yeah,
you know, a curiosity or in case they're involved in a case later on.
Just be a good collection to have on your bookshelf.
But Pam has come out and said that, kind of along the lines of what we were just saying, she can't think of any reason why Terry would lock up that partial denture other than the fact that he didn't want anyone comparing it to possible bite marks. Now, she eventually gave the denture to Dan Stidham, who was Jesse Misskelley Jr.'s lawyer, and by this time a judge. So he became a judge years later. The other thing that Pam has stated is that her sister said she witnessed Terry washing some clothes, washing some bed sheets around the time of the murder. And she thought that was very strange.
That is strange.
Because I'm not sure how much laundry Terry did. There are also some reports that Terry's nephew, Michael Hobbs, allegedly told some friends, my Uncle Terry murdered those 3 little boys. So I don't think this came out from him. It came out from some of the people that he told.
Sure.
And they said this under penalty of perjury and even took a polygraph on it. They went on to say one day he picked us up in his truck. He was quiet. He was upset. And he said, you're not going to believe what my dad told me today. My Uncle Terry murdered the 3 little boys. And apparently he called this the Hobbs family secret. And he asked these other boys that he told to not to tell anyone. There was another witness that said one night last winter, Michael and I were playing pool in his basement when another friend asked about the West Memphis 3 case. Because it had been in the news, Michael said, my uncle killed 3 kids in West Memphis. And apparently they said he was dead serious. He wasn't joking around about it. So I think that's why a lot of people look at Terry as a real possibility. So after the new DNA evidence came out in 2007, both Terry and Pam were questioned by police, which how could they not be? Gibbs, right? We got the hair thing. It's possible that it's his hair. Terry by this time was living in Tennessee because remember, they're separated.
Right.
He denied any involvement in the murders and said publicly on TV that he wasn't concerned about any new evidence. It was also in 2007 that the Dixie Chick singer Natalie Maines drew the ire of Terry Hobbs. You ever listen to the Dixie Chicks?
I remember them.
I remember them too. I actually took my wife to a concert years and years ago.
I like the Pistol Annies better.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I was one of about 4 men in the whole stadium.
I believe it. But I knew you'd be there.
There was no line at the men's restroom. But then all of a sudden women just started pouring in.
Because the restroom?
Yeah. The line was just way too long at the women's.
They're like, there's plenty of room over here.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Well, you can stand up to the urinal.
They didn't. They turned around and backed in.
I wasn't in there. I don't know.
I was standing next to this woman.
You're like, what in the world?
I was trying to use the urinal.
Yeah. You're like, okay.
And she was using the one next to me.
Yeah.
So Natalie Maines, I get off on my urinal story. She was a big supporter of the West Memphis 3, posted about them on the band's website, lobbied for donations for them. She also spoke out publicly about things after this DNA evidence came out in 2007, especially about the hair and the knot. And it was in 2008 that Terry Hobbs filed a defamation suit against Maines, claiming that in a letter posted on her band's website, she accused him of the murders of Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore. I think she was talking about the hair. The hair was his, and he didn't like that. So in the lawsuit, he claimed loss of income, injury to his reputation, and emotional distress. But this didn't work out well for Terry. First of all, the judge ruled against him, ruled that Natalie Maines did not defame Hobbs, and he ordered Terry to pay all her legal fees.
Well, that couldn't have been good.
That's not good.
Celebrity probably had a pretty high paying attorney.
Yeah. And I don't,
attorneys.
We know that Terry was not rolling in money. He didn't have a lot of money, but that wasn't the worst thing that came out of it, because as part of the case, attorneys were allowed to depose him. He opened himself up.
Yeah, he did.
By filing the lawsuit to being deposed by her attorneys. And it's no stretch to say that Terry Hobbs didn't come off very well in these depositions. Attorneys grilled him about his drug use, and he kept lying. I mean, you can read the transcripts of these depositions. I won't say he lied all the time. He was very evasive, but they definitely tripped him up in some lies about drug use to the point where he finally admitted to smoking marijuana, using cocaine, and crystal meth.
Say even crystal meth, man.
Yeah. But in the beginning, he said that he didn't do drugs. That's the kind of answers he would give, right? I don't do drugs.
I'm a good guy, man. I don't do drugs.
But the question was, have you ever done drugs?
Yeah.
I don't do drugs was the answer. And he kept going, and he would vary it was like variations, little plays on words.
Depends on what your definition of it is.
All right, Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
But and you and I have discussed this before. This is why you don't put yourself in a position to be deposed if you can help it. It's not a great experience.
Unless you're the smartest person in the room.
Which normally you're not going to be.
So don't do it. Even if you think you are,
yeah,
that means you probably aren't.
Well, the attorneys are going to be, in most cases, a lot more prepared than you are. And they're liable to ask you anything, especially in a deposition like this one that they're doing with Terry Hobbs. They also grilled him on his whereabouts the night the boys went missing. And I think that's why this was bad for him, right? Because before, he really didn't have anything on record, or he didn't have much on record. Let me put it that way. Now they're asking him questions under oath. And as evasive as he was about the drug questions, he was wishy-washy about the timing of the events that night. Meeting with the other parents, the things that happened, whether he saw the boys, didn't see the boys. The defense team even had former FBI profiler John Douglas take a look at Terry Hobbs. And if there's one person that you don't want to take a look at you,
yeah,
it's John Douglas.
Don't want that.
Because if somebody even asks John Douglas to take a look at you, it means they think you've done some really heinous shit.
Yeah. Yeah, they think you are guilty of something.
There's no other reason for John Douglas to be taking a look at you. But John came away with the impression that there are definitely two sides to Terry Hobbs. Douglas said, quote, "You're talking to a saint, the all-American father, a great husband, and then there's the rest of the story. We are talking about two different people." So I take from that his quote to mean that he felt that Terry, in certain interviews and things, was putting on an act.
Right.
And then there was the other real Terry.
Right. Because I think if he thought he was nothing to worry about, I think he could have flipped it and told it the other way.
Mm-hmm.
But because he ended the way that he did, he definitely has suspicions.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people have suspicions.
And we mentioned the possible bite mark and the finding of Terry Hobbs' partial denture. No one had it in 1998, right? When this Rule 37 hearing happened, it wouldn't be until 2013 that an expert would compare it. And even then, he didn't have everything, right? He doesn't have access to the bodies like somebody would have had at the autopsy.
Right.
He's looking at pictures of what they now believe are these bite marks, but he was able to figure out the scale. He used some computer software, compared the partial denture to the pictures of the wound on Stevie Branch's forehead, and he came away with the conclusion that they lined up. But again, Gibbs, this is all using photos and software, so we have to take that for what it's worth, but there are pictures out there of it. It's pretty compelling.
Pretty convincing.
It is. But again, I can't stress enough. You said it too. Everything is convincing when you look at it from a certain angle.
Yeah, if you're looking through this guy's perspective versus that guy's perspective, sure.
All right, so we're going to move on to Mark Byers, but we're going to come back again to Terry Hobbs because there's too much of Terry to let it go. But Mark Byers is a very interesting guy that some people think could somehow be involved. I personally think, Gibbs, a lot of it comes from the fact that he was just such a prominent figure in the documentaries.
Too prominent.
He was kind of like a person you just could not take your eyes off of.
Well, he didn't want you to take his eye off of him.
No, he liked the camera.
Yeah, he did.
And I did read some things from the guys that made the documentary that said he kind of was a camera hound. He loved it. He loved mugging. I think that's the term they used. He loved mugging for the cameras. But he said some very kind of outlandish things, not just in the documentary, but in the media, in front of courthouses over the years. So he did seem at times to be very over the top, but especially in the documentary. In the beginning, when all of this first happened, Mark Byers was adamant, right, that the 3 teenagers were the murderers, but he has changed his mind over time as new evidence has come out. But I think it's his past, his character, and like I mentioned, his actions on and off screen that have led to some people thinking he could have been involved. We've already talked about some of his legal troubles that occurred after the murders, but he had some before that as well. I guess as a kid, his parents called the police because he threatened them with a butcher's knife. He had some pretty serious issues with his ex-wife, Sandra. In '87, police were called to their trailer because he was threatening her with some type of stun gun. His ex-wife has come out and said that he had a long history with drugs, and that personally she thought right away, right after the murders happened, that he could have had something to do with it. And this is a woman that probably knew him very, very well. He had a history of arrests for drugs and for theft. And a lot of people make a big deal out of his teeth. Mark Byers had his teeth pulled at some point. I think it was after the trials, the first set of trials.
Right.
Some of the explanations that he's given for that have made some people curious. He said that his teeth started to fall out due to some medication he was taking, but that other times he said it was, gum disease. He's made a number of statements, some of which conflict. It really doesn't mean a whole lot to me, Gibbs. I mean, I guess it does when you think about the bite mark. But to me, Mark Byers doesn't seem like a man that probably would have taken very good care of his teeth anyway. I don't know. It's almost like everything with this case. It's mysterious. It's frustrating. People will make the argument that years went by. He had his teeth pulled because he didn't want anybody to ever be able to get an imprint of his teeth. And that's the argument that they make.
Right.
Is that true, or did his teeth just fall out? I think in one of the documentaries, he said he lost a bunch of them because people punched him in his face.
Yeah, I think you're right. He did.
So that's why I just think it's Mark Byers in his totality. He's a big hulking guy.
Yeah.
He's somewhat strange and when you see him in the way that he acts.
He comes off very strange.
He does, way over the top. Yes. Like he's putting on an act almost. But I don't know if he is. I kind of think that's just him.
I think so too. His personality.
Just like Terry Hobbs, Mark Byers has never been charged with anything related to the murders. I don't think he's anywhere near as high on most people's list as Terry is. I really think Terry kind of stands above everybody else when people think, okay, if it wasn't these 3 teenagers, who else could it have been? But I mentioned that Byers has changed his tune, right? He thought the 3 were guilty. Now he doesn't think they are. He's even named Terry Hobbs publicly as the killer.
Oh, he sure did.
This is not justice.
Who do you believe is the real killer?
Terry Wayne Hobbs.
Amen.
I don't know how much clearer I have to make it.
Right. What do you think about what's happening today?
It's a travesty. It's wrong. Now, I know the defense has their reasons. I know the state has their reasons. But this is not right. And the people of Arkansas need to stand up and raise hell. And it's total incompetence on the West Memphis Police Department. It was a botched job on the state. There was evidence planted. There were liars on the stand for the state. There were state witnesses that were told to leave so they couldn't testify. This is corruption to the highest degree.
I never get tired of listening to him talk.
No. Bold statement.
Yeah, it is a bold statement for him to come out and publicly say that he believes Terry Hobbs is the killer. Now, that clip was a little bit later in time. It's kind of foreshadowing. I took some of it out as to not go too far beyond the things that we're going to talk about in this episode. Now, according to LeVerett, in her book, Devil's Knot, the West Memphis PD, they looked at a couple of teenagers, Chris Morgan and Brian Holland, early on as suspects in the murders. Both these guys had a history of drug offenses, and they left the state for California just days after the murders. Morgan apparently had driven an ice cream truck in and around the neighborhood where the boys lived at one point. They were both arrested in California and were given polygraph tests, which allegedly they failed. And in the book, LeVerett writes that during subsequent questioning, Morgan claimed a long history of drug and alcohol use. He also claimed, Gibbs, that he had blackouts, memory lapses, and he made the statement that he might have killed the boys during, something like that. But he pretty quickly later recanted this statement. I don't know what to make of these two guys because there's not a ton of information out there about them. I think the problem a lot of people have with this is that it doesn't appear that the West Memphis PD really followed up on them as suspects much after that, because I think they got on the Damian Eccles train and they kind of left these two guys alone. But again, they could have figured out that there's no way they could have done it. I didn't see that. Then we get to Mr. Bojangles, and we talked a little bit about him in the last episode. On the night the boys went missing, the manager of a Bojangle restaurant, less than a mile from the murder scene, called police. This is a guy by the name of Marty King. And you said it last episode, Bojangles got some pretty good damn biscuits and chicken and biscuits.
Damn good biscuits.
Damn good.
Damn good.
But Marty King called police to report a black male, muddy, disoriented, bleeding, and said that he was in the women's restroom. Now, there are some discrepancies about the time he called. I've seen where Marty has said he thought it was close to 10 because they were getting ready to close. But the official police log says it was 8:40.
That's a gap.
That's a little bit of a gap, but depending on who's right and who's wrong.
Kind of leaning towards the Bojangles manager.
Yeah, I mean, the police catch a lot of flack, but deservedly so in some instances. So the officer that showed up right after the manager called was Regina Meek. And going back to episode 1, Regina Meek was the officer that showed up to the Byers residence after Mark called to report Chris missing. This is the same night. She has down that she got to Bojangles about 10 minutes after the call, so that would put it at about 8:50. The man had already left by the time that she got there, but it was said, Gibbs, there was blood. There was shit all over that bathroom, on the stalls, smeared on the walls. It was reported that a big roll of toilet paper was soaked with blood. Now, here's the big problem that people have with this part of it. The officer never went inside.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah, by her own admission, she pulled through the drive-thru and was told by staff that the bleeding man had already left. And she later testified at one of the trials that she spent a few minutes cruising around looking for the man, but then she got another call and went to that call. So nobody goes into the Bojangles that night. The next day, police come back to the restaurant. They talked with the manager, King, And he described this man as being in his late 20s, about 5'11", said he was very thin, extremely dirty, muddy, had mud all over his pants. Not to mention the fact that he was bleeding or had blood on him. That part was a little fuzzy. I think the manager thought he was bleeding and probably would have had to have been to leave blood all over
the place.
He was wearing sunglasses that he left in the restroom. The manager also said he had like a blue cast on or some type of brace on his arm. So one of the guys that went out there was Detective Ridge. Detective Ridge was part of Jesse Miskelly Jr.'s confession. We've talked about him a number of times. He was involved in not only his confession, but in testifying in both of the trials. The trial against Jesse, the trial against Damien and Jason. He took blood scrapings from various places, both inside the women's restroom and the hall leading to the restroom. But somehow later the scrapings were lost. No one knows what happened to them. And in one of the trials, Marty King testified that he was never asked about the incident again. That was it. They came out the one time, talked to him, took the scrapings that they later lost, and that was it.
I just think it's really weird that those very important scrapings are missing.
I'm always shocked at how much evidence seems to go missing or has gone missing over the years in different cases that we profile. That always shocks me because you think of the police as having this great system, right? Like on TV. I put it in the bag, I seal up the bag, it goes in another bag, whatever it is. I write my name on it.
I check it in.
It gets checked in.
They write their name on it.
Yeah.
They put it in a locker.
There's no way it gets out of there unless somebody checks it out. But, you know, again, in some of these smaller places, I don't know if the system is like that.
Well, we've done it on Unsolved.
I mean, you just walk by and you throw it in a room and wherever it lands, it lands. I don't know.
We've done other Unsolves where the evidence gets ruined. It gets put in a storage shed. It gets wet.
Now I do know that especially smaller places have to use storage facilities and things like that. But even still, you would hope that they would have a pretty steadfast, rigid system of checking things in and out and tracking. And I mean, it's kind of imperative, right? The chain of custody and all of that goes along with evidence, pretty easy to either get picked apart at trial, or if you don't have it at all, that's bad too, because then you can't either use it against somebody or it can't be used to help exonerate somebody. But I don't know what to think about the man that people call Mr. Bojangles. It's definitely strange.
I just want the biscuits.
Yeah, me too. I am kind of hungry now.
Kind of want to sing the song Bojangles too, but I won't.
I would appreciate it if you didn't. I do not believe that the majority of people think this is the killer. I think a lot of people did early on, maybe pre-2007, because Mr. Bojangles was known about very early on. I think post-2007, after a lot of the things came out about Terry, I think he's far surpassed
Bojangles.
Mr. Bojangles in a lot of people's minds. I could be wrong.
But you know what? If they would have kept the scrapings, they could have possibly...
You never know.
Cleared it, or one way or the other.
Or tied it.
Yeah. It just adds to the longer list of mystery.
It does. Well, because we just talked about it earlier, right? There was DNA analysis done that, and we're going to talk about it a lot more in the next episode, but didn't belong to DNA found at the scene that didn't belong to Jason, Damien, or Jesse, belonged to one or two unidentified people.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it would have matched up to the blood scraping. I don't know.
Could have. Maybe.
Mystery solved.
Maybe the Bojangles guy is mixed in with Hobbs or somebody else at the site.
You just never know.
You know?
So, Gibbs, I mentioned that we would talk about Terry Hobbs a little bit later. I think I'm going to save it for the next episode. There is somebody that comes out in an affidavit and names 4 individuals that he says committed these murders, 2 of which he says confessed to him. One of them is Terry Hobbs. The other is somebody that we've talked about already, Buddy Lucas. But it doesn't happen until like 2013. So I think I want to wait and put it more in chronological order of how the events actually happened in time, obviously. I went back and forth, right? It is about suspects. It is about Terry Hobbs, but it's a revelation that comes out later in time.
Well, I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I think I want to wait. And I think we have enough for this episode. I think it'll fit nicely into the next one.
I agree.
So as we're wrapping up, I do want to talk a little bit about the next episode. I've mentioned it. This case it's very frustrating to me. It's a frustrating case to research and to talk about, because depending on what you look at, what you read, what you watch, you can think something different from 1 minute to the next.
Oh, you could argue so many different angles
and be convincing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I mean, look, no doubt about it. We could do 12 episodes on this case.
Yeah, we probably could. It's not our style.
No.
4 is pushing it for us.
Yeah. But I mean, someone could, right? Even you could literally dissect so many parts of it and just continue to hammer down on it.
You know, as you're doing the research, you'll see people that make some pretty compelling arguments about the guilt of the 3 teenagers. And they have some ammunition to back it up. Now, whether they're right or not, I don't know. But some of it's pretty compelling. So I do think in the 4th and final episode, along with obviously telling the story of what happened to the 3, I do want to take some time to walk through, I guess, what you'd call both sides. You know, if you're in the camp that believes that the 3 are guilty, these are the reasons why you believe it, and detail out some of those. If you are in the camp that believe they're guilty, this is why you believe it. So we'll do that, and we'll wrap up the case, and we may even give some of our own opinions, but
probably.
All right. You got anything else?
No, just hang on for next week.
We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Yeah.
You never say no. I'm waiting for the day that you say, you know what? I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's been a long week.
You go ahead and play them. I'm out.
Why don't you play the voicemails? You talk about them.
I'll see you.
I'll see you later.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Gibby. This is Lee calling from Houston. I was calling because I wanted to know if you guys could ever do an episode on Susan and Josh Powell. And she's the one who went missing in Utah, and they always suspected him, but they never found her body. So they could never really link him to it, and no charges were ever brought. But he ended up taking his 2 sons, who were in protective custody, I guess, and he killed himself and them in a house fire. It's just insane, and somehow his dad is involved. So I was wondering if you guys could do an episode on that, so I don't have to go and do all the sleuthing myself. I can just listen to it. So thanks. Have a great day. Thanks for all the entertainment and the hard work. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Bye-bye.
Hey, Lee, thanks. I just had somebody else recommend that to me as well.
Yeah, you've actually talked about doing that case.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of those ones that I think has been requested quite a bit. So we'll have to move it up the list.
Move it on up.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Terry from Indiana. I really love your podcasts. I switch back and forth between the 2 of them, and I'm getting ready to start criminology. I have a case for you that has been a mystery for over 100 years, and you'll have to go to London for this one. Why not do Jack the Ripper? Have a great one. Bye, guys. Keep your own time ticking.
Hey, I want to go to London. Maybe some of our British people will put me up so I can do the research.
That would be pretty cool.
That would. Any British people out there who want to...
Wait, how come it's only the word British that's coming
the
out?
only word I can do. British people put Gibby up for the week.
I've actually had a number of emails just this week
Yeah.
about Jack the Ripper.
Really?
Yep.
What? the other mystery was she's talking about this thing called criminology.
Yeah, it's this other podcast.
Okay,
You don't know
I'm
nothing
unaware
about
of it. Yeah.
Nah.
Okay.
You don't need to know nothing about it.
Yeah. All right.
But obviously, Jack is on the list. It's a big case.
It's a huge case.
And it's a big research effort, somewhat like the West Memphis 3 case, because there's a lot of theories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have been suspected over the years.
And when something's been out for 100 years,
It's been talked about.
it's been talked about, looked at from left, right, above,
Yep.
and below.
But we're definitely going to do it. The question is when.
As soon as someone puts me up in British,
Get you some fish and chips.
some fish and chips.
Hey guys, my name's Elizabeth. I'm a fellow Daytonian, and I'm calling today because it is the anniversary of Erica Baker's disappearance. And growing up in Kettering, this was a very big deal. It rocked our community, and there was even a Dateline episode about it. And I was just wondering, maybe you guys could do a True Crime Unsolved podcast about Erica Baker. It would be super cool and would make all the state and people happy. Thanks, guys.
So, Gibbs, what was one of the very first cases that I proposed to you on Unsolved?
It was this.
Erica Baker.
And we talked, I think it was a few weeks ago, we talked about it again.
Yeah. I actually wanted to do it for the anniversary. The problem was we were in the middle of this West Memphis 3.
Yep.
So I know we're going to do it. I know we've talked about it. It is one of the biggest cases around here, for sure.
If I could get somebody to put me up in Dayton to do the research.
Dayton.
Dayton.
You sound like Forrest Gump.
Dayton.
Hey guys, I just wanted to call and wish you a very happy 100 episodes for TCAT Unsolved. I was just listening to the Jennifer Harris episode and realized it was number 99. So I think next week when you're releasing it, it will be number 100. So I just wanted to call in advance and say congratulations. Technically, I think it's more like 200 since you have 2 podcasts, but I know that you're humble, so you'll just say 100. So second, congratulations for the 100 you hit last year for True Crime All the Time. You guys are absolutely killing it. I'm so excited for 2019 and all the episodes you have coming out and the new podcasts you're working on. Just can't wait to see what you have coming. Love you guys. Bye.
Oh, love you too. We appreciate that.
I've done a lot, haven't I?
Yeah, you have done a lot.
That's not even counting. People don't know is my Australian voice is so good that I'm the host, the one you don't know on Case File. That's me with my Australian voice.
That might be one of the funniest / most outlandish things you've ever said.
Razor lights.
I don't even know what you didn't say it.
Or is it razor blades?
It's raise up lights.
Razor lights. Razor lights.
You're saying
Raise up
razor lights. It's raise up lights.
How about just razor blades?
Or you can just say razor blades.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. You got anything else, Gibbs?
I'm going to go get me some raspberries.
Raspberries for those that listened to the TCAT episode.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, you jump over.
You better check it out because Gibby went a little bit crazy on where artificial raspberries come from.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Hey folks, don't forget about The Real Real. Own iconic luxury items at unreal values with The Real Real. Authenticated luxury from top designers at up to 90% off retail. Every item is authenticated by their team of experts. New customers receive an automatic $25 off at checkout. So shop in-store, online, or download the app and get 20% off select items with the promo code REAL. That's therealreal.com, promo code REAL.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.